Switching things up here in the third hour. It's been all football so far. A little bit of Olympics mixed in as well, but mostly football here. As training camp is underway, that's what tends to happen as we get to this time of year. Everybody's football crazy, but now it is time to talk some baseball with our man in the box. That is Les Norman. Get him punched up. Oh, you already punched him up? Look at that, Rudy. See, we're working seamlessly here. Rudy has now slid in for the Drake. Les Norman slides in for himself. Les, what's going on, buddy?
Man, Rudy is a tremendous upgrade. I just want you to know that. Rudy is an upgrade.
Yeah, so Drake is a major upgrade from Shane, and then Rudy takes it to the next level from Drake. So really, we are like more than 2 levels up from Shane at this point with Rudy sitting in. So, I mean, what could go wrong, right?
Yeah, well, it's a long hour. We'll wait and see. I did, however, find out that you and I have in common that we are both older than Tom Brady.
Aha.
Yes. I mean, we kind of knew I was, but, now for once you can finally feel like one of the old men in the room.
Yeah, I've never paid attention to his birthday. Just like I always knew we were near the same age, but never paid attention to like when he turned. And I turned 44 back in May, and he turns 44 today, which just feels weird because I remember spending like 3 years of college watching Tom Brady play quarterback for the Patriots, and yet here he is still playing quarterback, and he's younger than me.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. And you know who acts like he's older than Tom Brady is Adalberto Mondesi.
He does.
Just wanted to throw that one in there.
At least his body treats him like it's older than I think Tom Brady maybe guts it out a little bit more than Adalberto. Tom Brady may be more of a gamer than what we would call Adalberto Mondesi. What were your thoughts yesterday? Dayton Moore coming out and admitting something that we've all thought for a long time. You know, we go into every spring training saying maybe this will be the year Mondesi stays healthy and maybe he'll, show everything he can do for an entire season, and it never works out that way. And we've all come to the realization that this was the fact a long time ago, but now Dayton Moore saying that he's not a guy you can rely on, not a guy that you can count on, and maybe just a guy that you have to hope you get 100 games out of.
Yeah, I mean, we did all know. We've known this for a long time. I think the statement says a few things. One, it's finally showing that Dayton Moore is amazingly frustrated at that they spent $2.525 million in a 1-year contract on this guy. I know that somewhere around that $100 million mark was what Mondesi and his crew wanted, and that ain't happening now. I can tell you that. But maybe it's also a challenge from Dayton Moore to Mondesi, saying that now is the time. You either need to toughen up and play this game, or it may be time to move on. And maybe it's, even though you can't trade him because he's on the injured list again, it's a set to other teams that if he's healthy by the end of the season, this guy is going to be a free agent, and we don't want him anymore. So we'll see what happens. But I love the fact that he finally said what we all have been thinking, what we all have been saying, and it's good for him to finally come out and we get a glimpse behind this politically correct litany of statements that he makes. And finally there's that, we're tired of it.
Do you think there's anything that, as they handle the Bobby Witt Jr. situation, realizing that, okay, it wasn't just AA, he's also doing it at AAA. He is, if not ready now, at least ready that they think, if they want to play the service time game, which they say they don't play, and they've shown that they don't really play, maybe they choose to do so with him. If they're ready to bring him up, even if it's not till next year on opening day, however they decide to do it, could they just be setting the stage right now for the fact that, okay, we can play Bobby Witt Jr. at shortstop every day because we've now already put it out there that we can't trust that Adalberto Mondesi is that guy, and that they start looking for a different position for Mondesi, and that they're kind of playing that game between those two guys?
Yeah, I think that, Nicky Lopez plays a factor in this too, in the Bobby Witt Jr. scenario, because with his surprising resurgence with his bat, getting up to the 280 mark, and he's always played great defense. No matter what happens in your shortstop situation, Nicky Lopez has proven that he can be that stopgap to fill in, to be able to give you a serviceable shortstop that can hit from the left side and with good bat control. I mean, There was a time a few months ago when I thought, okay, this might be what Nicky gives us. This might be the best he's going to be. But then from that moment on, he started to get hot and he worked. And, us Midwestern boys from that Illinois area, we just always prove tough. That's what it is. But I think that it would be a mistake to have Bobby Witt Jr. if they waited for him until next season, because then if he gets off to a slow start, he hasn't had any major league experience to mature, at least mentally. I mean, the minor leagues do have their mental issues of their own that you have to overcome and battle, and it's a makeup, and you need to be tested. But, if they call him up in September and give him a little taste of it, it won't matter how well or how poorly he plays or anywhere in between. He'll have the experience, which is just preparing him, giving him a taste now and preparing him for next year. So I think it would be a mistake if they waited. They should do it, whether it's September, in the next week, 2 weeks, whatever. I don't think they'll play the service time with him. It's time to move on from Mondesi, and if they call him up, it will be the final nail in the coffin that says, we're done with you. We're going with our future. Witt has proven that he can play at all these minor league levels, and so now it's just a matter of when they want to pull the trigger, because he needs to get big league experience as soon as possible.
We're talking with former Royal Les Norman. He's brought to you by TruckMovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. All right, you played outfield, Les. Tell me about Adalberto Mondesi. When you watch him, how do you think, if they tried to do something similar to what they did with Alex Gordon and said, look, this guy's got a cannon, this guy's got athleticism, turn him into an outfielder and a guy that could maybe this isn't even a possibility if he becomes an outfielder, could he also spell Bobby Witt Jr. at shortstop if Bobby Witt Jr. were to go down, if he's been playing the outfield? What are the prospects in your mind of him switching positions? Would you keep him on the infield, or do you think he could be a good outfielder?
Well, here's the deal. Athletically, he could be a great outfielder because we know he can run, he could cover ground, he does have a cannon, and it wouldn't take him that long to adjust. The problem is that outfield is a little bit more taxing than infield because you have to cover a lot more ground. At shortstop, you're not running into walls. You have to play angles and walls. You have to throw further. It's a lot harder on your legs. It takes a little more longevity out of you, I think, if you're going to be an everyday player. So could he? Sure. I think he could make that transition no problem. He'd probably be a better outfielder than a lot of guys that we've paraded through the system over the years. But there is no way, if he can't stay healthy as a shortstop, what in the world makes us think that at a tougher position of the outfield that he's going to be able to his body's going to be able to withstand that? Because, there's a difference between a short, powerful throw across the diamond and a long throw powerfully from the outfield, because it's a slightly different arm angle. It's a little more of a stretch of the arm socket every time you throw, and we know he's got a cannon, but again, it's just a different throw. So if he can't handle shortstop and stay healthy, I don't see any way that this guy would be able to do it in the outfield over time. So, and then if he's hurt, how can he back up Bobby Witt Jr. if he can't even stay healthy in the outfield? So for me, it's just time to cut bait, man. If he comes off, for me, and it's kind of a personal thing, but it's also, I'm trying to think on the business side. I mean, how many chances do you give this guy? If we didn't have Bobby Witt Jr. or someone like him, I would say, maybe let's hang on, give him one more shot. I know it's probably not going to happen, but it's worth one more shot. We have Bobby Witt Jr. He's proven himself in the minor leagues, and Mondesi can't sneeze without a toenail flying off. So let's just go ahead, not literally, of course, but it's just time to move on and look to your future, because obviously the Royals have not played well. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're still a few years away. So let's get the experience of the guy that's going to play shortstop long term.
Okay, so that's what you would like to see them do. Do you think that's what they will do? Do you think they'll say goodbye to Mondesi?
No way.
Okay, so I wanted to put that out there first before I ask this question then, because I'm there with you in the sense that I don't think there's any chance they actually do that, because they still love his potential and what he could bring. If they are saying, He can't be counted on every day. I think that is setting it up to where they say Bobby Witt Jr. is our shortstop of the future, and it sets it up to where Mondesi has to learn another position. What position? Let's just say you have to have him go out there and try to play a different position because you're not going to have him be your shortstop anymore because that's going to be Bobby Witt Jr. What position are you putting him at to try to learn as he comes up, maybe rehabbing in the minors or however you want to do it?
If you're at the position where you're not gonna do the kid gloves thing and just say, okay, we need you to learn a different position. We're not going to worry about trying to protect your body. If you're hurt, you're hurt. If you're not, you're not. Then yeah, I say move him to the outfield. I think if he's healthy, I think he would be a really good center fielder. I really do. He's not a third baseman. His speed is wasted at second base. He's not a first baseman. He's not a catcher. He's not a pitcher. The only thing to say is he's either a backup shortstop, utility infielder that can hit, or he's an outfielder. So the obvious thing, if you want him to be on the field every day, is that you teach him to play outfield. Rusty Kuntz has proven that he can work that magic, and he turned a below-average third baseman in Alex Gordon into a multi-Gold Glove winning all-star outfielder. So we've got the one coach that can make it happen, utilize the genius of Rusty Kuntz, get the guy healthy, see if he can do it. And yeah, I'm with you in the sense they're saying that, yes, Bobby Witt Jr. is our future shortstop, but I think the Royals have this love affair with Mondesi. He's young. I think 95% of it is they want to stay with him, but I also think there's that 5% that says that the Royals might be thinking, and I have no comment to base this on. This is a hunch only from me, so I want to put that out there. But I think there's that 5% that they think, well, we don't want to let him go because then he's going to get healthy with someone else, and he's going to end up coming back into the division of the American League, and he's going to stick it to us and crush us, and we're going to look like fools. So there's a little bit of both in that, but get him healthy, unleash Rusty Kuntz on him in the outfield, and I would not give him any more chances if I'm the Royals. I mean, if I'm the general manager, he's done with me. I'm done with the guy. But if you're going to give him another chance, if I'm managing and the GM says you've got to give him another chance, say, okay, fine. He becomes an outfielder. You get him rehab. You get him right. Once he's right, it's not babying him anymore. He's old enough with enough experience. Get him out there. Let him run. Let him crash into walls. Let him throw. He's either going to be tough enough to learn it and take it, or he's going to prove yet again that he's too fragile to play this game on a consistent basis, and then it's time to let him go.
All right. We're talking with Les Norman here on The Zone. Tell me why you said he's not a third baseman. I'm just curious as to why you feel that way.
I just don't think he's durable, man. You've got to be a bigger guy. I think he's tall and lean. I know he's got quick reactions and all that, but I think because of his obliques and hamstrings are often real quick to go. I don't think he has the size for third base. I know he's got the home run potential, but I mean that's a position where you should get at least 20 out of the guy. And with the fast reaction time that you need over there, he's more built to do the long loping strides in the hole or up the middle. I think that with the reaction time, the way you twist and turn at third base and not have as much time, and obliques an issue for him. I mean, if he's playing in a little bit and the guy rockets one down the line and he's got to turn backhand as quick as he can, that's an oblique waiting to happen. I mean, the guys had oblique issues constantly. So I think size, ability-wise, he's built more for shortstop, and because he's been so frail, I think that position's an injury for him waiting to happen.
We're talking with Les Norman. He's presented by TruckMovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the trade deadline that just passed this past week. Royals moved Danny Duffy and Jorge Soler. Before we get into those moves specifically, I'm not sure, were you up with the big league club ever during the deadline, or were you down in the minors and seeing how that kind of ripple effect went down through the minor leagues? What was your personal experience with trade deadline times?
Well, my first year, I was up in the month of June and then sent down, and I was a prospect in the 40-man, so I wasn't worried about it. If I was traded, I was traded, but I was up and down and then called up in September again, and then in '96 when I made the team, I think during the month of July, I was actually hurt.
Okay.
I was on the DL with a dislocated collarbone, so and wasn't an everyday player hitting about a buck. So there's nothing you're going to throw in for me in a trade.
No,
so
no.
I
But
never had to deal with
were
it.
you in the clubhouse? Do you remember at all being in the clubhouse around the deadline? Like, were there guys that might have been getting shopped? Or I'm just curious, like, what the dynamic is for the guys who might hear their name bandied about, who just kind of what that does to your psyche, because we saw them playing good baseball, and then boom, the trade deadline hits, you trade a couple guys away, and they go and lose 3 straight. I'm not saying that that's the reason why. Could purely be coincidence. I'm just curious about the mindset of the team when you might hear we're sellers and all these guys might be going, might be staying, and then suddenly you drop 3 in a row right after the deadline passes. I'm curious if there's any sort of like psyche adjustment that happens around trade deadline time.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically in 95 and 96 what was really going on. I mean, I was so stars in my eyes trying to stay and adjust to the big leagues. I don't really remember a whole lot about that. I mean, we had pretty solid veterans like Monty and Gubiza and Apier, Gaetti, Gagne, all those guys. So I don't remember any mid-season things. It all depends on the personality of the player, and it also depends on their maturity level based on are they willing to handle it. Because there could be some guys that, I mean, if you're traded, you're traded. You either deal with it or you don't. But the fact is, if you're traded, you're traded. You got to go. So there could be clubhouse disruptions. I don't remember anything specifically in the mid-'90s that happened with. So I can't talk to that. But I have seen in the minor leagues guys get traded and then not be happy at all, almost feeling like their career was over, got comfortable. So I think going into it, no matter who you are, you can be happy with your teammates and really feel like you've got something special in a certain clubhouse like the Royals had in 2015 and in 2014 as well. But you got to know it's a business, and at any time anybody is expendable and positioned for a trade. And so you just have to be mature. You can be hurt by it, but you still have to perform. I mean, look, and I'll end with this. The Cubs just cleaned house and traded away Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez, and Chris Bryant. And in his first 2 games, Rizzo went deep. In his first game, Baez went deep for the Mets. And in his first game, Bryant went deep for the Giants. So, again, that was a great unit who, in just recent years, has won a World Series, again from Chicago, again something you think you'd never see in your lifetime. But the Cubs won a World Series, and they just gutted 3 of their best players. So those 3 guys could have been ticked. They could have handled it immaturely, whatever it may be, but they went out and played for their new team. And so it all depends on the maturity and the makeup of the individual.
So you brought up the Cubs right there. It was something I had on the notes here to talk about later, but since you brought it up, it's something. So the Cubs just did what Dayton Moore wasn't willing to do. They had pieces of a championship core that wasn't up to that level anymore. Like, these pieces are still good. They can still get you a good return, but the team itself wasn't quite up to that level. It's been the debate for a while around here, and Dayton Moore says, obviously, looking back, he might have done things differently, but he wanted to keep that core together for another chance. So I'm not saying one way is the right way and one way is the wrong way. I love the fact that those guys stayed around and took a chance, and the Royals are suffering now more because of it, because they didn't try to go out and get as much as they could for guys like Haas and Moose and Kane and those guys when they could. The Cubs did it, but how broken is baseball when even a team in a market like Chicago feels like they can't pay all their guys, that they have to trade them away because they're not going to be able to get it done? Like, I get it, I guess, that the Royals feel like they can't do it because small market and all that, but Chicago's not that. The Cubs should not be that kind of team. Like, how broken is baseball that the Cubs are having to go out and sell off these pieces to try to rebuild instead of just re-signing those guys who are still really good players?
Yeah, it's a crazy game, and if you're a fan to the point, I mean, I had a friend text me, who is also from Chicago. Our families grew up together, playing sports together. And he sent me a text like he couldn't believe and his word was, they just gutted this team. I can't believe how baseball in Chicago has just done this. I mean, Chicago's front office is notorious for making moves that are a little inconceivable at times, but you also got to give him respect because, when Theo was there, he did a good job and they win the World Series. But this game has changed dramatically. So nothing about this game is about, your hometown team. I don't care what the marketing department puts together to sell tickets for the fans. Regardless, it is a business, and at any time, even a big market team like Chicago, they will dump guys. Now, maybe they may sign one of those guys back. Maybe they sign 2 out of 3. Who knows? Maybe they fooled us all. They're going to find some money, and they're going to sign all 3 of them to come back again. Who knows? I can tell you this, though. Rizzo, Baez, and Bryant were not part of any problems in Chicago. Sometimes Baez, they say they benched him and all that. Look, I would take Baez tomorrow and put him at third or move Witt to third. I would take him in a heartbeat. I would take Rizzo. I would take Bryant. I would take any of those guys. I'm living in dreamland because we can't afford them. But, this game is not for the weak. If you fall into this love affair with certain players and you're absolutely appalled and heartbroken by a trade or what is deemed as a dismantling of your superstar core of a team, then you probably need to rethink why you watch baseball and why you're a fan, because first and foremost, it's a business. This is part of it. I get it. And one of those guys will probably come back to Chicago, but the game has completely changed. It's not like it was. You will not find many George Bretts around anymore that stay with a team for 20-plus years. Just doesn't work that way. It's Curt Flood's fault for opening the door, which I'm all for. I mean, if there's other teams willing to pay, you should be able to be a free agent. So he was a pioneer that made a lot of people a lot of money. So when you're out there, Major League players, and you get traded or you sign a contract to a different team and, the Garrett Coles and Bryce Harpers of the world, you should be paying homage to Curt Flood and at least put a little memory bank in there about him. So, it's not the same game that we see.
Text message comes in and says, baseball isn't broken. The Cubs' problems are because Ricketts has sucked with his money. Yeah, I'm not specifically blaming baseball for these. And yes, teams can have poor ownership and
I'm
poorly
from Chicago. I don't disagree with that.
Poorly run franchises, but overall baseball system of the Dodgers being able to go out and do what they do, and the Yankees and the Red Sox and then the Royals and Tampa Bay and teams like that having to do what they do. I mean, that is a flawed system. That's what I'm referring to there. And if the Cubs end up signing 1 or 2 or 3 of those guys back, then it just ends up being a great baseball move. Get something for them and then sign it. When it doesn't matter, sign them right back. But like you said, they might sign none of those guys, and all 3 of them could come back. So I guess we'll wait and see what happens there if any of them come back. But it just you're not supposed to see fire sales from teams that are in, what is Chicago, the 3rd market, number 3 market in the country. You're not supposed to see, fire sales of your best players. You're supposed to be able to retain those guys when you're in a big market like that, if you're a properly run franchise.
Yes, absolutely. And they don't have a problem with not selling. I mean, Wrigley Field is the experience in and of itself. I mean, I don't care who you put on the field. You might have 1,000 to 2,500 less tickets you sell, but it's not like you're going to go from whatever their capacity is down 50, 60% because you sold away your 3 guys. People are going to come. There are faithful people in Wrigleyville that will go to a game because win or lose, Wrigley is an experience. Kauffman Stadium is beautiful. And you may come in with a team that's losing, and you may experience it for a weekend if you're out of town or you're bored on a night. You go out, but look, Kauffman Stadium, as awesome and wonderful and beautiful as it is not Wrigley Field. There's a deeper history there.
It's not a destination. You don't come to you don't make a trip to Kansas City specifically because you want to go to Kauffman Stadium. It's a better stadium than Wrigley, but Wrigley is a destination. You want to go there. You want to experience it. Hell, we went to Chicago for my birthday this year, and we knew the Royals were playing the White Sox. We didn't care. We tried to look to see what the Cubs were doing because we were going to go watch the Cubs against anybody before we were going to watch the Royals and the White Sox, and the Cubs were on the road that weekend, so we got tickets to Royals-White Sox instead. But even with the Royals in town, we were going to go watch whoever the Cubs were playing because it's Wrigley.
Because it's Wrigley, and because of the bleachers, and because of the ivy and the basket, and the part of town that it's in, and the the place that Harry Carey made some of his most incredible calls and some of the crazy Budweiser staggering catwalks he made from the bathroom to the booth and back, or vice versa. Now the rooftop experiences that people can rent out a rooftop and watch the game or listen to. I mean, there's so many things that Wrigley Field offers in the nostalgia area, and so they will not have the problem of lower attendance like a Kansas City will. I mean, in 2014 and 15, you could hardly buy a ticket. Now you can't give them away. And that's not a knock on the Royals. The Royals marketing department has done a fantastic job with the product that they've had to offer this year, last year. I mean, they really have. They've got some of the best business people in the front office working for them. But again, you can only do so much. And Chicago's different from Kansas City in many ways. So they won't have to deal with what Kansas City has to deal with. And so you just have to play the cards you're dealt.
We're talking with Les Norman here on The Zone. All right, let's talk about the trade deadline itself from the Royals' perspective. Danny Duffy goes to the Dodgers. We don't know what that's going to look like. It's a player to be named, which I would assume is obviously based on what they can get out of Duffy this season. Jorge Soler goes to the Braves, and they get somebody with a heartbeat back. So that, I think, was a win in and of itself. Let's start with just the fact that he was able to move both guys. I think Dayton gets a little bit of credit for the fact that he got anything for a guy that's on the IL and a guy that we had all said should just be DFA'd. The fact that he stuck with Soler long enough for him to get at least a little bit hot to get somebody. Right. And I guess you give him a little bit of credit for getting something for those guys when it looked like they probably weren't going to do anything at the deadline.
Yeah, let's give Dayton Moore some credit. He got a guy hitting 190, a former home run champion, hitting 190 with on pace to not even hit 20 home runs or maybe 20 home runs, which is 65% less than he hit the year he led the league or led the majors or whatever it was. And a guy that was on the EL with a second forearm flexor strain, which they said it was negative before. He pitched again, but sometimes it points to Tommy John and the torn UCL, which they say that's not it, but only a team like the LA Dodgers trades for someone with the hopes that he's going to get healthy to get him, down to the home stretch. And it works out for Duffy. He's from California, so that's great. But handed to Dayton Moore, he pulled several rabbits out of a hat, pulling those two off, and the luck of the timing of Soler in that last week, getting hot and hitting some home runs. And hey, he hadn't hit a home run yet with the Braves, but he's 4 for his first 7. When you're hitting 571 to start off your season with a new team, that's nothing to shake a stick at. So far, the Braves are winners, the Royals are winners, and we'll see if the Dodgers are winners. Yeah,
and we talked about it for several weeks leading up to it about, do you just let Soler go? Do you just DFA him? And I kept saying maybe he's just keeping him in there, hoping he'll get hot and hit 6 home runs in an 8-game stretch or something like that. And instead he goes out and hits 6, I think, in like a 4-game stretch and got hot. And I thought if he did that, if he showed just enough pop, that there would be a team that would be willing to at least throw you something for a guy that you're probably going to DFA anyway. The guy they got, right-handed pitcher Casey Kalic, or Kalic, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, from Atlanta. He's 23. He was their 4th-round pick in 2019 out of A&M. This year with Rome in High A, he was 3.26 ERA, had given up 11 runs in 30 innings. Over 20 appearances, he's recorded 35 strikeouts, which is 10.38 Ks per 9 innings, so you like that. You like a guy that gets better than a strikeout per inning if he's in the minors. He's gone 5 for 5 in save opportunities, so he is a guy that Dayton thinks, maybe he could be a strong bullpen piece in the future. But just getting anything for Soler, I think, is a win for the Royals and for Danny Duffy as well. We'll see what they end up getting back for him. But there were other names that were out there, and this continues to be the conversation about Dayton Moore. In fact, Rudy's telling me I got a break, so let me come back and we'll talk about that less. We'll talk about the guys that the Royals didn't move, and I want to get your thoughts on Carlos Santana, Whit Merrifield, Scott Barlow, Mike Minor, some of these other names that would have been able to fetch you more in return. We'll talk about that next with Les Norman here on The Zone. Back in here on the Zone with Les Norman, presented by truckmovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Les, I want to get to the guys that the Royals didn't trade. I just saw this on Twitter during the commercial break, and I want to get your thoughts. A gentleman named, I can't call him a gentleman, I guess, a 22-year-old D-bag named Max Berry is now in custody in Miami because he was flying on a Frontier Airlines flight, allegedly touched two flight attendants' breasts, then was screaming at other flight attendants that his parents are worth $2 million before punching another flight attendant. And now Frontier has suspended the crew because in order to subdue him, they duct taped him to his chair for the remainder of the flight until they got to Miami and he could be arrested.
So apparently, if you're a flight attendant, this is another example of a company not backing their people. I mean, so apparently I don't remember ever, and I've had many friends that have been flight attendants, I don't remember there ever being a prerequisite that someone is allowed to grope you, and if you do anything about it, you're supposed to just let it go. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's an unsafe work environment. That's absolute assault. It's sexual harassment. And I mean, and by the way, they duct taped him there. Where were the guys? Where were the men on the plane that stepped up and protected these people from this guy? And they could have held him down too. I mean, that's unbelievable. So if this legitimately happened,
it did. It's all on video. It's all on video. Yeah.
If it's all on video and this happened, if I'm on that plane, I'm stepping up and doing something about it. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I'm not, and it might come out later that maybe someone did. I guess someone had to hold him down to duct tape the guy. But
yeah, they got back to it, so it cuts away, and then it comes back when the guy has almost finished the duct taping, and everybody's just laughing. But it shows all the stuff that he's doing, and it shows him, swinging at the flight attendant. But just crazy stuff. Like, what the hell? What the hell is wrong with some people?
It's a different world, and the fact that, I mean, if I wouldn't let that guy on my airline ever again. I would love it if a judge would rule that he can't fly, make him walk to his next destination.
He's on a no-fly list.
Yeah,
I'd like that. Yeah,
ridiculous.
He was not wearing a mask. My guess is that's probably how it started. My guess is that's what we'll find out. It came down to him not wanting to do that.
But you can't harass people.
Nope.
You can't sexually harass them. You can't assault them. I mean, that is unbelievable. Whether you're male or female, you should never, ever, ever have your body touched or invaded by someone that is unwanted in public, anything along those lines. That is absolutely ridiculous. And with just the details you gave me, the fact that crew got suspended is just beyond my understanding. I don't get that.
Yep. Got to restrain him in some way. You still have to land the plane, so got to do something. I thought it was kind of funny seeing the guy get duct taped and humbled a little bit.
Right. And if he's willing to do that and attack flight attendants and harass them and physically, sexually, all those things, who's to say the guy's not going to want to charge the cockpit?
Yep. Never know what he's capable of.
If you let him get away. Yeah, absolutely. So it's easy, for companies, we don't condone that type of behavior. We're not allowed to do, because they're probably afraid of being sued which who knows? In the world we live in, this guy probably will try to sue the airline.
Oh, he'll probably make millions of dollars off of it. He'll be worth $2 million like his parents.
Yeah, maybe $5 million, and then he can make that announcement. Yeah, it's a different world that we live in, and I think that behavior is shameful. And sadly, in the end, there's some part of this that this guy's going to get away with, and then when we're just going to be appalled even more. But it's a new world, man.
Somebody says he did have a mask, but don't let that get in the way, though. I have to go back and watch the video. At some point, maybe the part I saw, maybe it had gotten taken off for him to be yelling. I don't know. So maybe he did have a mask, and maybe it had nothing to do with that. But we're talking with Les Norman, Major League Baseball insider for us here on The Zone, presented by truckmovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Okay, the guys the Royals did not move. Carlos Santana, I mean, obviously everybody but Duffy and Soler, but the names that we had heard about that there was some interest in: Carlos Santana, Whit Merrifield, Scott Barlow, even Mike Minor. Disappointment? Are you glad they kept them? Do you think Dayton is delusional to think that this team is going to be competitive next year? Where are you on them not moving the guys that would have gotten them a bigger return?
Yeah, I guess this is the personal side now. I try to speak and be very specific. Am I speaking on the business side or am I speaking on the other side? But right now it's on the personal side. I don't understand why they didn't move guys like that, because it's why they signed, a guy like Santana. With his OPS and as much as he walks and what he can do for a team, you still could have got a ton for him. And even with a guy like Whit Merrifield, I know everybody loves Whit, and I get all that, but what of all the people we're talking about, what kind of haul could you get for Whit Merrifield? Seriously, he's one of the most underrated players in the game. If you thought of a top 10 list of players, you're going to come up with Ohtani, you're going to come up with Trout, you're going to come up with a Harper, you're going to come up with all these guys, and Whit Merrifield doesn't make most people's top 25 list because he's not a household name, and yet I think as a whole, maybe not in categories singularly, but as a whole, I think he's one of the top 10 best players in the game. And the Royals have proven over the years that they haven't paid him what he could get on the open market. And I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. If the Royals really wanted to honor him, they'd trade him and let somebody else pay him what the Royals won't or can't, and then let's reap the reward of prospects and players, a huge haul that would come from a guy like Whit Merrifield. So I'm disappointed that those two guys didn't move. Barlow, not so much. He's a talent, yes. We probably couldn't got a ton for him because he's inconsistent. I really don't believe that Mike Minor would have got you much. And maybe you put him in an older, more experienced rotation, and maybe he would produce a little bit more and feel like he had protection around him. Maybe he's trying to carry the weight of the one veteran in a young staff who has not done well at all. So I just don't think with those two, good talent, Barlow maybe a little bit more, but I'm just surprised that Merrifield and Santana didn't go.
Yeah, and I guess my biggest problem with it is I heard Dayton Moore talk about how he thinks this team is ready to be competitive next year, that they thought it was going to be this year. I don't see it. I don't think that they're there. And I think you're going to have cost yourself the opportunity. I get it when he did it with Hosmer and Kane and Moustakas and Escobar and all those guys that were there because they had won a World Series. This group isn't that group. They haven't won squat. And if you just hold on to Carlos Santana, hold on to Whit Merrifield for another year, hold on to Scott Barlow thinking he's a big piece of this bullpen for next year, and next year is, another 87, 92, 95 loss season, you've just wasted that opportunity. I think that's more likely than them being good, but Dayton Moore is the eternal optimist in that situation. So trust me, I enjoy going out to the ballpark and watching Whit Merrifield and Carlos Santana, or if I'm going to turn a game on TV, I'd like for there to be actual big leaguers taking at bats. And for this job, we have to watch the games. So I like the fact that I get to turn it on and see some good players. But I just think that Dayton Moore is not very realistic with himself on how close this team is. And I think that you're going to keep guys and you're going to end up maybe trading Whit away in his contract year where he's going to be worth a lot less because he's going to be, 2.5 years older, and a team's not going to have that control over him. They're going to have to then sign him to a deal. I think Carlos Santana will play another season here and then walk, and you're not going to get any comp pick for him because he's not going to go out and get that kind of deal that gets you a comp pick. So I just feel like you're wasting an opportunity to get more assets to try to build around Bobby Witt Jr., and to try to build around whatever of these young pitchers come up and do well, and Nick Pratto and these other guys that are going to be around. If this team makes the playoffs, it's going to be because those guys come up. It's not going to be because Adalberto Mondesi and Hunter Dozier and Jorge Soler, obviously he's gone, but this core that they thought they had, that's not the group that's going to get them there. So now I feel like you need to put all the pieces into trying to have your best team together, your best window to hit when Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be kind of hitting his prime for the Royals. So it's just disappointing to me.
You're not surrounding him with much. At least you're not showing that you're surrounding him with much. And every year, even as good as what Merrifield is this year and right now and all that, every year they get older, you're losing either a prospect body or you're settling for a lesser value than what you could get right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if Whit Merrifield puts the same numbers up next year as he slowly but surely enters his mid-30s, pretty soon, in a year or two, he'll be in his mid-30s, that's when you start thinking about retirement. So if he even puts up numbers, the first thing that's going to come up when it comes to trades is, well, we do like him, but we know he's going to decline soon because he's 30, whatever. So while they're in that phase where on a bad team you could still put up good numbers, I don't get it. I don't understand it. You talk about core. Well, you want to keep a core. Let's go back and look at where they are in the division. Let's go look back at, or even the current. The Royals pitching staff is 27th in the major leagues. You've got a prospect who you're supposed to be developing who won't throw a changeup, and by the way, is on a rehab assignment in AAA, which I don't believe is a rehab assignment at all. So again, there's so many reasons why that I don't understand. You should have done it, but didn't do it.
Yeah, a couple of caveats that I'll throw out there that are reasons why. We don't know if trade talks were had, what they were offered, and I don't want Dayton Moore just to give them away. So if teams are coming and not giving you fair market for what your guys are, then I get it. You don't move on from that. And secondly, he has tended to like to make moves in the offseason, so there's still the possibility that those guys, maybe more than one of them, could be moved in the offseason. I don't expect it, but he does care about the product that gets put out on the field. So if he waits until the offseason to do it because he wants the paying fans to still be able to see those guys this year, and then he makes a move in the offseason where he feels like he can get something, then I'll change my tune. But I was a little bit disappointed that they weren't more active.
Yeah, I completely agree. And by the way, while we were talking, because we just talked about this, I just watched the full video of this Max Berry guy.
Yeah.
And the way he came at that flight attendant, tried to punch the male flight attendant, man, I'd give him all a raise. I mean, I would.
You wouldn't suspend him?
No, I wouldn't suspend him at all. I mean, the way he came in, again, I wasn't on the flight, so I don't want any people emailing me, tweeting me, like, you don't know the whole story, all that. I saw a guy that looked like he might be drunk. It says he allegedly grabbed the breasts of two flight attendants and took a swing at another one.
Yeah.
And yet they're not supposed to do anything about it. I don't understand it. But sorry, moving on.
No, that's fine. Just tell that guy to buckle his seatbelt. I'm sure he'll stay there and be nice and calm. All right, let's take a quick timeout. When we come back, I got a couple more items I want to throw your way, and we'll wrap up this hour next. Les Norman, our Royals insider, brought to you by TruckMovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Back with more next. All right, wrapping things up with Les Norman here in the 12 o'clock hour. Les, Daniel Lynch and Chris Bubich have looked a little better. I mean, never a doubt. I never doubted that Daniel Lynch would come up and just go 8 shutout innings and follow that up with another 6 innings and 3 runs with a quality start. 14 innings since he's been back, 3 earned runs. Never a doubt that Daniel Lynch would come back and have early success.
Yeah, never a doubt. Sure. I'm just glad to see it because we always knew a guy like Daniel Lynch had the physical tools. When you see a guy, what happened, whether the Royals mismanaged him or not, whether he just came up and tipped a pitch, which they thought, I still don't see any video difference between minor league and big league stuff. I have no idea. That's for smart people. But the way to really see what a makeup of a player is how he handles adversity. Can he be calm? Can he bounce back from what some people might be deemed serious failure, or if it's self-imposed failure? But the way he's come back and the way he's pitching, to be able to pitch with confidence is one thing. To be able to pitch with regained confidence and excel is another thing. And that's why I think a guy like Daniel Lynch, you're going to see pitch for a long time. And the thing with Bubich's makeup is, for those of you that are really good lip readers out there, just watch a few close-ups of Bubich when he pitches, and you can really tell this guy wants to win more than anything. But he's not soft. He doesn't get beat down for a young guy. He's ready to compete no matter what. And until he throws his last pitch of a start, man, he is going to come after you. And so 2 different makeups of 2 different pitchers, but I think we're going to see them for a long time, because both of those different makeups are really maturity at a young level, and I love to see it.
Yeah, Bubic has gone 6 innings in each of his last 3 starts and given up 4 total runs in those 3 starts. He's on the mound tonight against Dylan Cease from the White Sox. All right, 30 seconds less. What are your thoughts on Kumar Rocker not getting signed by the Mets? Looks like Dayton might have known what he was doing there, or just coincidence, got lucky that they didn't pick him.
No, I think Dayton knew what he was doing. I think every team that didn't take him before the Mets did probably knew. Some of them obviously thought and there were better players and better picks out there. But I think word gets out, and the Mets rolled the dice, and they crapped out on it. And it's just the way it is, man. It's part of the game. You never know. But last time I checked, the Royals did sign all of their picks, correct?
They did.
Yeah, absolutely. So whether you're a Dayton Moore fan or not, and if you're not, you should be. But regardless, you've got to give him and his team of advanced scouting huge credit with that, because so many people, how did you not take Rocker? How did you not take Rocker? For those people that asked that, this is why we didn't take Kumar Rocker. This is why we did not sign him. I mean, the guy had thrown a ton of innings. His mechanics were violent, and could you fix that? Yeah, but damage could already be done. And somebody somewhere knew that in his head he was not 100% sure that he was going to sign the contract. So hats off to the Royals and to every other team that passed up on him when they didn't have to.
You're the man, Les. Appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
I got you, my friend. Take care, buddy.
Thanks. That's Les Norman, presented by TruckMovers.com. First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Adam Teicher coming up next. He's up in St. Joe covering the Chiefs. We will talk Chiefs football for the final hour of the show next.